Back in April of this year, I talked about a truly ridiculous case that had landed at the Supreme Court. In Mahmoud v. Taylor, religious fundamentalists objected to the mere existence of books in public school classrooms that acknowledged the existence of LGBTQ people, with perhaps the funniest example that made it into the court record being a picture book where two male hamsters happen to get married. The theocrats complained that the presence of these books violated their religious freedom to hate gay and trans people. Two lower courts ruled against the parents because, obviously, we have a thing called separation of church and state, or at least we did back then. And so it hit the Supreme Court, where at the time, I worried that the parents would finally score a win thanks to the incredibly bigoted conservative majority on the Supreme Court. I pointed out that this case was an obvious wedge that not only damaged the wall separating church and state, but which could easily lead to bigots banning books because they feature Black people or women with jobs. Unfortunately, I was right that the Supreme Court would rule in favor of the theocrats. At the end of June, the 6 conservative judges overruled the 3 normal ones to establish that the government burdens parents' religious exercise when it requires their children to participate in instruction that violates the family's religious beliefs. In her dissent, Justice Sotomayor wrote that simply being exposed to beliefs contrary to your own does not prohibit the free exercise of your religion. The result will be chaos for this nation's public schools. Requiring schools to provide advance notice and the chance to opt out of every lesson plan or story time that might implicate a parent's religious beliefs will impose impossible administrative burdens on schools. She went on to point out that this ruling will especially harm students in poorer districts that can't afford to fight back when theocrats threaten to sue over some insult to their deeply held religious beliefs. So yeah, that was bad. Even worse, though, is that this ruling is now having a particular effect that I didn't even mention as a possibility in that previous video. It's going to kill kids. Why is that? Well, if you guessed religious exemptions to mandatory vaccinations, then congratulations, you've been paying attention. On Monday, December 8th, the Supreme Court's order list contained this curious item: Miller, Joseph et al. V. McDonald, Commissioner et al. The petition for a writ of certiorari is granted. The judgment is vacated and the case is remanded to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit for further consideration in light of Mahmoud v. Taylor. This is the Supreme Court instructing a lower court to revisit a decision they previously made, as it now may be incongruent with their Mahmoud v. Taylor decision from this past summer. So, what is Miller v. McDonald? Well, the defendants are Dr. James McDonald in his official capacity as Commissioner of Health of the state of New York, and Dr. Betty A. Rosa in her official capacity as Commissioner of Education of the state of New York. And the plaintiff is Joseph Miller, an Amish guy who doesn't want to vaccinate his kids against deadly diseases as required by the state of New York for any child enrolled in a public school. Now, I know COVID is still fresh in everyone's minds because it's still happening, but this case actually, amazingly, predates COVID. Prior to 2019, New York State allowed parents a religious exemption so that they could enroll their kids in public schools without vaccinating them if that particular form of child abuse was a deeply held religious belief on the part of the parents. Anti-vaccine cranks immediately started encouraging one another to pretend that their misguided bullshit was somehow related to religion, despite nearly every major religious leader stating unambiguously that there is absolutely nothing wrong with vaccinations. The abuse of this loophole led to many disease outbreaks around the United States, and in 2018 and 2019, there was a particularly nasty outbreak of measles in New York, especially found in ultra-Orthodox communities where vaccination was rare. So, in the summer of 2019, then Governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, signed a bill that closed that religious exemption loophole, saying, "The science is crystal clear. Vaccines are safe, effective, and the best way to keep our children safe. While I understand and respect freedom of religion, our first job is to protect the public health, and by signing this measure into law, we will help prevent further transmissions and stop this outbreak right in its tracks." And remarkably, it did. That legislation, combined with other swift actions from the public health sector, stopped the epidemic from spinning out of control. They managed to vaccinate hundreds of thousands of people, sometimes secretly, so their neighbors wouldn't know and judge. In 2020, a retrospective study found that New York's efforts prevented a spike that would have been at least 10 times worse, infecting more than 8,000 people. But as we all know, facts don't actually matter when it comes to anti-vaxxers. And so that legislation was challenged immediately and constantly. In 2021, the state conducted a review of a school in an Amish area and found that they were allowing kids to enroll without proof of vaccination, which earned them a six-figure fine. Two of the students' parents sued the state, arguing that the Amish religion did not allow vaccinations and thus claimed that they were being discriminated against. The lower courts told them to pound sand because vaccines undeniably prevent disease, and that's important. And you can tell, based purely on the regular outbreaks of diseases like measles and polio in Amish communities. If they want to continue to enjoy preventable diseases, killing and injuring their children, they were still free to do so in their own homes. Like I said, there were many challenges like this, and in 2022, a similar one reached the Supreme Court, but they declined to hear it. But now, apparently, the gay hamster ruling has given the conservative majority a plausible reason to allow anti-vaxxers to kill other people's children by exposing them to dangerous diseases. If it's now your right as a parent to opt out of anything a public school wants to teach your kids, maybe it's also your right to ignore the guardrails preventing the United States from finally reinvigorating the iron lung industry. Obviously, this is early days. We don't know how the lower court is going to interpret Mahmoud v. Taylor and how it may apply to this case. But yeah, this is very scary. The fact that they are immediately applying that ridiculous ruling to something so far out of left field as vaccinations really shows how the right is using religion and building this theocracy in order to get everything they want. And unfortunately, what they want is going to kill more children. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.